Hey, BookTube, it's Peg. I'm back at the history shelf. Of course I am. Where else would I be? I am locked in my home, as are you. I'm losing my mind. Not really. Um, Martine has told me that she can't handle my energy level today. I said, I am faking it. She's like, well, stop faking it and just be tired like the rest of us. So before I do that and crash, let me just keep faking it a little bit more. Wow, I really miss my hairdresser. Uh, Tried to give myself a haircut, as I said in my last video, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Anyway, guys, how are you doing out there? I feel bad. I waited a whole week to make a couple of videos. Well, I didn't really wait. I was, kind of just in another state of mind, and I'm really trying to catch up on some of the reading that I'm doing for buddy reads and reviewing, and and also just things I want to read, like my magazines and my journals. And but speaking of journals, I thought this video would just be a little catch-up video as far as what things I've gotten in the mail. I just uploaded a video on the Library of America books that I've recently acquired and added to my collection. But I had a few odds and ends, and I thought I'd just show them on here and just see where the conversation takes us, or takes me. But hey, you know what? Let me take a sip of this. Huh? Mm-hmm. We're going for the V8 energy this evening. Oh, you know what? So let's start with this. I got two journals in the mail. One of them I've been waiting on forever, mostly because when I subscribed, it's a journal that you can only get through, I think, Johns Hopkins, or one of those sites. When I subscribed, the subscriber year ran from a certain term. So even though I subscribed late fall of 2019, they're like, well, that only applies for a full year, which only begins in 2020. So I was like, okay. And then I was waiting and waiting. And I'm like, well, I know you should have a January issue out, right? So where is it? And then it took a while. They're like, oh, that hasn't shipped yet. And I'm like, I still haven't gotten it. I was persistent and dogged because I think the first time they mailed it to me, it was lost in the mail. But anyway, I used to subscribe to this journal ages ago. But I think now I have a better appreciation for it just because of my studies, and I'm a little bit more prepared for it. This is the Journal of the History of Ideas. Yeah, and this is the January 2020 issue. The Athenian Owl. I love that. The Journal of the History of Ideas. And I love academic journals, and I used to subscribe to a few. Now that I'm thinking of it, I used to subscribe to one that Steve gets, it's the Raritan. And that was one of them that I was getting at the same time that I was getting Journal of the History of Ideas. And then I had like a World History Organization journal. And I love getting historical or intellectual academic journals. So, what is this journal, you ask? Well, it pretty much is what it says it is. The Journal of the History of Ideas defines intellectual history expansively and ecumenically, including the histories of philosophy, of literature and the arts, of the natural and social sciences, of religion, and of political thought. It also encourages scholarship at the intersections of cultural and intellectual history. For example, the history of the book and of visual culture. So, I mean, this was right up my alley. I mean, I love this kind of stuff. Let me give you a sample of what you can expect in the Journal of the History of Ideas. Sorry for the glare. So, and I was waiting forever. Oh, sorry, no, this one is printed by University of Pennsylvania Press. I'm sorry, this is not a Johns Hopkins journal. But, yeah, so I was communicating with someone at the University of Pennsylvania Press trying to make sure I got my subscription. All right, here's a sample. Well, here's the contents list. So you get kind of about 6 essays and then some book reviews in the back. more of that. Okay, so here's one. A meadow that lifts the soul. Originality as anthologizing in the Byzantine church interior. Wow. Another essay is called Orient contra China. Eusebe Reynaldo's Vision of World History, circa 1700. Another essay is Perfecting Community as, quote, One Man. Moses Heyman Luzato's Pietistic Confraternity in 18th Century Padua. Next essay is Peril in the Means of Its Diffusion. That's in quotes. William Godwin on Truth and Social Media. Another one is The Idea of the Upalekwa, Constructing a Transcontinental Community in Eastern Africa, 1888 to 96. Then we have Technology, Law, and Annihilation, Carl Schmitt's Critique of Utopianism. I think I would like that one. And then Crashing the Cathedral, Historical Reassessments of 20th Century International Relations. And then books received, notices, and such like that. Yeah, books received is pretty dope because yes, this gives me reading ideas. As if I need any more, I don't. But nice, and these are all new. So as they come out, outstanding. So I'm excited. I mean, some of these are very arcane titles, but I like it. I like it. I like learning new things. I like to be challenged in my reading, and the Journal of the History of Ideas fits that bill. All right, another one that fits that bill for me, and I've shown it before, and I sent out a picture of this to David Murphy on Instagram, and I'm like, I know you must subscribe to this, right? You have to. He actually communicated with me today that he's thinking of getting a subscription, and he sure enough did. But this is the Independent Review, a Journal of Political Economy. And this issue is on the Mavericks and their classics today. And you've got good old Adam Smith, John Maynard Keynes, David Murphy's guy, Hayek, and I don't know who this lady is. I have no clue. Eleanor Ostrom. This is put out by the Independent Institute. I have subscribed now for about a year. I like to be challenged. You know, I'm reading the Basic Economics book by Thomas Sowell, and I'm, David is doing a yeoman's work on his summaries and his videos for all the parts of the book. And I'm following as I'm able to get the reading done. I am not as far as he is. I have to read it a bit slower, and David's been very encouraging. I'm going to link David's channel below. Highly urge you guys to check out David Murphy's channel. He's doing just fantastic content. Just real heady stuff. And yes, there's a lot of economy, but you know what? I've been finding that I'm more and more interested in it, especially as it converges with history or politics. Well, it actually drives history, really. It drives history, so it's not really converging. It's part and parcel of history. So with the Independent Review, put out by the Independent Institute, I guess for those of you who don't know, it's fairly a new journal to me. Again, I've only subscribed about a year, but they have a nice selection of a couple articles I'll be like, I'm going to pass on that because I'm not interested. But most are something I'm like, I want to tackle that. I want to see what this is about. It could cover such things as philanthropy. What's the future of philanthropy? And so they can take a philosophic turn. They can take a materialistic turn. They can take a look at what's going on in India today in the economy and technology. But yeah, there's a lot of I guess you say there's a lot of Austrian guys in this journal as well. And I know that for each essay that's included in here, this is a boon. And I know I told David Murphy, you're going to love this part. They include the references, which gives you tons of reading recommendations. And if you want to explore something more in detail from an essay, you've got it all here. Um, and you can get a subscription to this. There's the flyers in here, little postcards, right? It's only, and for new subscribers, I hear you can get a really good deal. If you subscribe longer, you could get it like 50% off. But I think and it's 4 issues, so it's quarterly. So 4 issues a year, and I think I paid like $29. So, but it's pretty cool. And this is the spring 2020 issue. So I just got that in the mail. I'll read to you just a sample of some of these essays that we have going on here. And the theme is reconsidering the classics of political economy. So one author, Donald J. Boudreau, writes on today's relevance of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. J. Daniel Hammond writes on Malthus was not a Malthusian. Michael C. Munger writes, was Karl Marx a public choice theorist? Fabulous. Oh, this one looks good. Solomon Stein and Virgil Henry Storr write about reconsidering Weber's The Protestant Ethic in the Spirit of Capitalism. Then we get other essays called the Keynes Perplex, Misey's Human Action, and its place in science and intellectual culture, which is fabulous because I just ordered about last month I did, and I think it just arrived, which I'll be showing in my Liberty Fund video coming this week, or this weekend. But I ordered the 4-volume set of Human Action by Ludwig von Mises, mostly based on David's enthusiasm for that book. And I had picked up a pocket version of it. It was $5 on the Mises Institute site. So I said, well, I can't lose. And then I picked up a study guide, which was $15. And I'll show that next. I'll show that when I show the Liberty Fund books, because I need help trying to read that. As David mentions, it's very heterodox, and it could be very, I don't know about turgid, but it's going to be not simple reading by any means. But I think John David, and I'll put John David's channel below, we're looking at maybe trying to muddle our way through it together, and maybe David can provide some guidance on that. But so I'm intrigued. But David said Human Action is probably his favorite book of all time. So yeah, that's so neat. And they mentioned that book in here. So okay, so those are the 2 journals. Oh, those are 2 journals. But what else have I gotten in the mail recently? Have I shown you guys? I get lots of magazines and journals, and I know you guys sometimes, there's a few of you out there that really enjoy seeing more magazines. Again, can't go wrong with good old archaeology. Nice palette cleanser. Just takes you back. I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a little girl. I think I wanted to be an archaeologist and also a marine biologist. But I think it was mostly archaeology that I wanted to get into. Still enjoy reading that. I think I showed you that I do subscribe to Modern Age, a conservative review. This is the winter 2020 issue, so we haven't gotten spring yet. They had thoughtful articles in here. It's not what some of you might, think. We got some of these essays are The Ideal Teacher of Literature, Shakespeare in Classical Antiquity by Paul Cantor, which I don't know if some of you are familiar with his name, but I'm familiar with his writing. So yeah, it's a nice little, neat, skinny little journal, and put out by Intercollegiate Studies Institute. I get that in the mail. All right. And I recently subscribed to this, and this is good through the autumn 2020 issue. It's published by Phi Beta Kappa. This is the American Scholar. Cover up my address. Will robots ever think? It's an interesting selection. They even have some poetry in here. Let's get that slick paper. As you can see, it's very shiny. It's very slick. Still getting my feel for it. It's a new subscription for me, so I'll see if I want to renew it. All right, and then I have 3 books I want to show you real quick. So after I read Pandemic 1918, I started looking around at some of the other books, and then of course just watching all the coronavirus briefings and the scientists. I've been really intrigued by um, learning more about how these things happen, how they spread, how we could stop it. And then this came up in my when I was searching for books. This was highly recommended, and this is The End of Epidemics: The Looming Threat to Humanity and How to Stop It by Jonathan D. Quick with Bronwyn Fryer. I'll give you a quick synopsis. Oh boy. A leading doctor offers answers to one of the most urgent questions of our time. How can we prevent the next global pandemic? Of course, this was published, well, 2018. It's pretty close. The 2014, let me just read this to you. The 2014 Ebola epidemic in Liberia terrified the world and revealed how unprepared we are for the next outbreak of an infectious disease. Somewhere in nature, a killer virus is boiling up in the bloodstream of a bird, bat, monkey, or pig preparing to jump to a human being. This not yet detected germ has the potential to wipe out millions of lives in a matter of weeks or months. That risk makes the threat posed by ISIS, a ground war, a massive climate event, or even the dropping of a nuclear bomb on a major city pale in comparison. In The End of Epidemics, Management Sciences for Health Senior Fellow and Harvard Medical School faculty member Dr. Jonathan D. Quick proposes a new set of actions, which he has coined the Power of Seven, to end epidemics before they can begin, including, this seems after the fact now, right? I'd like to know, I might look him up on Twitter and see what he's saying about all this going on right now. He's suggesting spending prudently to prevent disease before an epidemic strikes, which we, didn't do. Ensuring prompt, open, and accurate communication between nations and aid agencies instead of secrecy and territorial disputes. Thanks, China. Well, whatever. I mean, they should have been more open about it, obviously. But what do we expect? Still, we should have had a plan in place. That's just my two beans. I think Bush and Obama were both. Oh, I heard somewhere that The Great Influenza by John Barry, I guess when W. Bush read it, and I guess he did read. He did read. He read it. He was freaked out. He's like, we got to get something in place, and then those plans carried over, and then the Obama people had a ready to go, and I guess, this current administration just threw it out the window. So he also suggests, I'll get back to this, fighting disease and preventing panic with innovation, good science, and citizen activism. Well, the good news is I think we're seeing that people are complying and being active and most people are being good citizens and trying to follow the science and I'm not going to say dictates, because I don't want people to assume that they're dictating. They're not. They're trying to protect your life and someone else's life. So the social distancing, the staying at home as much as possible, I think most people are doing that. I think there are some reckless folk out there, but I'm not going to talk about that right now. Anyway, I thought, even though this, is somewhat after the fact because we have a pandemic going on, there's a lot of good science stuff in here that I need to learn about as far as how these agencies communicate and how this happens on an international scale. Like, how should agencies the countries that are involved with outbreaks, how are they communicating with each other, and how should they be? And we know that, it's still a bit murky with what was going on with China, and this is interesting. There's a chart right here that calls it the influenza alphabet, the most notable human influenza viruses. And I'm sure many of you have heard of like ones that are called like H1N1, right? H1N1 was the Spanish flu, and then you go all the way down the line. But, we're not an H1N1, we are a COVID, so it's slightly different. But this one's interesting. And the last outbreak, when I ended that Pandemic 1918 book, ended with this one, the H5 one, that was the breakout in China in 2013. So anyway, this looks interesting and timely, and I can hopefully educate myself a little bit more on that.